5.3 Lesson Objectives. Compare and contrast asexual and sexual reproduction. Give an overview of sexual reproduction, and outline the phases of meiosis. Explain why sexual reproduction leads to variation in offspring. Define life cycle, and identify different types of sexual life cycles. Introduction. Cell division is how organisms grow and repair themselves. It is also how they produce offspring. Many single-celled organisms reproduce by binary fission. The parent cell simply divides to form two daughter cells that are identical to the parent. In many other organisms, two parents are involved, and the offspring are not identical to the parents. In fact, each offspring is unique. Look at the family in figure below. The children resemble their parents, but they are not identical to them. Instead, each has a unique combination of characteristics inherited from both parents. In this lesson, you will learn how this happens. Figure 1. Family portrait: mother, daughter, father, and son. Children resemble their parents, but they are never identical to them. Do you know why this is the case? Reproduction: asexual versus sexual. Reproduction is the process by which organisms give rise to offspring. It is one of the defining characteristics of living things. There are two basic types of reproduction: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction involves a single parent. It results in offspring that are genetically identical to each other and to the parent. All prokaryotes and some eukaryotes reproduce this way. There are several different methods of asexual reproduction. They include binary fission, fragmentation, and budding. Binary fission occurs when a parent cell splits into two identical daughter cells of the same size, figure below. This process was described in detail in the lesson Cell Division and the Cell Cycle. Figure 2. Binary fission in various single-celled organisms, left. Cell division is a relatively simple process in many single-celled organisms. Eventually the parent cell will pinch apart to form two identical daughter cells. In multiple fission, right, a multinucleated cell can divide to form more than one daughter cell. Multiple fission is more often observed among protists. Fragmentation occurs when a parent organism breaks into fragments, or pieces, and each fragment develops into a new organism. Starfish, like the one in figure below, reproduce this way. A new starfish can develop from a single ray, or arm. Figure 3. Starfish reproduce by fragmentation. Starfish, however, are also capable of sexual reproduction. Budding occurs when a parent cell forms a bubble-like bud. The bud stays attached to the parent cell while it grows and develops. When the bud is fully developed, it breaks away from the parent cell and forms a new organism. Budding in yeast is shown in figure below. Figure 4. Yeast reproduces by budding. Both are types of asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction can be very rapid. This is an advantage for many organisms. It allows them to crowd out other organisms that reproduce more slowly. Bacteria, for example, may divide several times per hour. Under ideal conditions, 100 bacteria can divide to produce millions of bacterial cells in just a few hours. However, most bacteria do not live under ideal conditions. If they did, the entire surface of the planet would soon be covered with them. Instead, their reproduction is kept in check by limited resources, predators, and their own wastes. This is true of most other organisms as well. Sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction involves two parents. As you can see from figure below, in sexual reproduction, parents produce reproductive cells called gametes that unite to form an offspring. Gametes are haploid cells. This means they contain only half the number of chromosomes found in other cells of the organism. Gametes are produced by a type of cell division called meiosis, which is described in detail below. The process in which two gametes unite is called fertilization. The fertilized cell that results is referred to as a zygote. A zygote is diploid cell, which means that it has twice the number of chromosomes as a gamete. Mitosis, meiosis, and sexual reproduction is discussed at http://www.youtube.com/watch?mark v=cosijizataya. Cycle of sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction involves the production of haploid gametes by meiosis. This is followed by fertilization and the formation of a diploid zygote. The number of chromosomes in a gamete is represented by the letter N. Why does the zygote have 2N, or twice as many, chromosomes? Meiosis. The process that produces haploid gametes is meiosis, see figure above. Meiosis is a type of cell division in which the number of chromosomes is reduced by half. It occurs only in certain special cells of the organisms. During meiosis, homologous chromosomes separate, and haploid cells form that have only one chromosome from each pair. 2 cell divisions occur during meiosis, and a total of 4 haploid cells are produced. The 2 cell divisions are called meiosis I and meiosis II. The overall process of meiosis is summarized in figure below. It is also described in detail below. You can watch an animation of meiosis at this link, http://www.youtube.com/watch, v=d1 \_MQS\_fz0. Figure 6. Overview of meiosis. During meiosis, homologous chromosomes separate and go to different daughter cells. This diagram shows just the nuclei of the cells. Notice the exchange of genetic material that occurs prior to the first cell division. Phases of meiosis. Meiosis I begins after DNA replicates during interphase. In both meiosis I and meiosis II, cells go through the same 4 phases as mitosis. However, there are important differences between meiosis I and mitosis. The flowchart in figure below shows what happens in both meiosis I and II. You can follow the changes in the flowchart as you read about them below. Figure 7. Phases of meiosis. This flowchart of meiosis shows meiosis I in greater detail than meiosis II. Meiosis I but not meiosis II differs somewhat from mitosis. Compare meiosis I in this flowchart with the earlier figure featuring mitosis. How does meiosis I differ from mitosis? The phases of meiosis are discussed at http://www.youtube.com/watch?v=IJLC52LMFQG 27:23. Meiosis I. Prophase I, the nuclear envelope begins to break down, and the chromosomes condense. Centrioles start moving to opposite poles of the cell, and a spindle begins to form. Importantly, homologous chromosomes pair up, which is unique to prophase I. In prophase of mitosis and meiosis II, homologous chromosomes do not form pairs in this way. During prophase I, crossing over occurs, see below. Metaphase I, spindle fibers attach to the paired homologous chromosomes. The paired chromosomes line up along the equator of the cell. This occurs only in metaphase I. In metaphase of mitosis and meiosis II, it is sister chromatids that line up along the equator of the cell. Anaphase I, spindle fibers shorten, and the chromosomes of each homologous pair start to separate from each other. One chromosome of each pair moves toward one pole of the cell, and the other chromosome moves toward the opposite pole. Telophase I and cytokinesis, the spindle breaks down, and new nuclear membranes form. The cytoplasm of the cell divides, and 2 haploid daughter cells result. The daughter cells each have a random assortment of chromosomes, with 1 from each homologous pair. Both daughter cells go on to meiosis II. Meiosis II. Prophase II, the nuclear envelope breaks down and the spindle begins to form in each haploid daughter cell from meiosis I. The centrioles also start to separate. Metaphase II, spindle fibers line up the sister chromatids of each chromosome along the equator of the cell. Anaphase II, sister chromatids separate and move to opposite poles. Telophase II and cytokinesis, the spindle breaks down, and new nuclear membranes form. The cytoplasm of each cell divides, and 4 haploid cells result. Each cell has a unique combination of chromosomes. Mitosis, meiosis, and sexual reproduction is discussed at http://www.youtube.com/watch?v=CK Taya, 1823. Gametogenesis. At the end of meiosis, 4 haploid cells have been produced, but the cells are not yet gametes. The cells need to develop before they become mature gametes capable of fertilization. The development of haploid cells into gametes is called gametogenesis. Gametogenesis may differ between males and females. Male gametes are called sperm. Female gametes are called eggs. In human males, for example, the process that produces mature sperm cells is called spermatogenesis. During this process, sperm cells grow a tail and gain the ability to swim, like the human sperm cell shown in figure below. In human females, the process that produces mature eggs is called oogenesis. Just one egg is produced from the 4 haploid cells that result from meiosis. The single egg is a very large cell, as you can see from the human egg in figure below. /figure 8. A human sperm is a tiny cell with a tail. A human egg is much larger. Both cells are mature haploid gametes that are capable of fertilization. What process is shown in this photograph? Sexual reproduction and genetic variation. Sexual reproduction results in offspring that are genetically unique. They differ from both parents and also from each other. This occurs for a number of reasons. When homologous chromosomes pair up during meiosis crossing over can occur. Crossing over is the exchange of genetic material between non-sister chromatids of homologous chromosomes. It results in new combinations of genes on each chromosome. When cells divide during meiosis, homologous chromosomes are randomly distributed to daughter cells, and different chromosomes segregate independently of each other. This is called independent assortment. It results in gametes that have unique combinations of chromosomes. In sexual reproduction, 2 gametes unite to produce an offspring. But which 2 of the millions of possible gametes will it be? This is likely to be a matter of chance. It is obviously another source of genetic variation in offspring. All of these mechanisms working together result in an amazing amount of potential variation. Each human couple, for example, has the potential to produce more than 64 trillion genetically unique children. No wonder we are all different. Sexual reproduction and life cycles. Sexual reproduction occurs in a cycle. Diploid parents produce haploid gametes that unite and develop into diploid adults, which repeat the cycle. This series of life stages and events that a sexually reproducing organism goes through is called its life cycle. Sexually reproducing organisms can have different types of life cycles. 3 are described in the following sections. Haploid life cycle. The haploid life cycle, figure below, is the simplest life cycle. It is found in many single-celled organisms. Organisms with a haploid life cycle spend the majority of their lives as haploid gametes. When the haploid gametes fuse, they form a diploid zygote. It quickly undergoes meiosis to produce more haploid gametes that repeat the life cycle. /figure 9. Haploid life cycle. The letter N indicates haploid stages of the life cycles, and 2N indicates diploid stages. Diploid life cycle. Organisms with a diploid life cycle, figure below, spend the majority of their lives as diploid adults. When they are ready to reproduce, they undergo meiosis and produce haploid gametes. Gametes then unite in fertilization and form a diploid zygote. The zygote develops into a diploid adult that repeats the life cycle. Can you think of an organism with a diploid life cycle? Hint: what type of life cycle do humans have? /figure 10. Diploid life cycle. The letter N indicates haploid stages of the life cycles, and 2N indicates diploid stages. Alternation of generations. Organisms that have a life cycle with alternating generations, figure below, switch back and forth between diploid and haploid stages. Organisms with this type of life cycle include plants, algae, and some protists. These life cycles may be quite complicated. You can read about them in later chapters. Figure 11. Alternation of generations. The letter N indicates haploid stages of the life cycles, and 2N indicates diploid stages.